Previously, we left off in Genesis 21 in verse 16, where Hagar was crying out to God, waiting for them both to die of starvation in the wilderness in Beersheba. So, we continue in verse 17 to verse 21. And God heard the voice of the lad, and the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven and said to her, What aileth thee, Hagar? Fear not, for God hath heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise, lift up the lad and hold him in thine hand, for I will make him a great nation. And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the bottle with water and gave the lad to drink. And God was with the lad, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness and became an archer. And he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took him a wife out of the land of Egypt. All right, let's unpack this. God heard the voice of the lad. Yet it was Hagar weeping, but Ishmael appeared to be praying. Back in Genesis 16, 7 to 13, before Ishmael was born, it was the angel of the Lord that appeared to Hagar. But here, it's the angel of God. This distinction signifies that previously she was under Abraham's household, where the angel of the Lord would appear, which meant that Abraham's household was separated by holiness. But now it was different. Now she's on her own. It was the angel of God, Elohim, whereas before it was the angel of Jehovah or Yahweh. So, God asks, What's wrong, Hagar? As if God didn't know. Then came two of the most comforting words in the Bible, appearing in the form of this phrase 62 times in the Bible. Fear not. The angel shared that God heard Ishmael's voice. Fear not. Get up. Pick up the youth and grab his hand, because I will make of him and his descendants a great nation. Verse 18. I wonder if Ishmael's weakened state was because maybe he had given up his own portion of bread and water for his mother. In any case, at just the right moment, Hagar discovered they were right by a well, and she saved his life. Now, the important thing here is, in accordance with his promise made to Abraham, God was with the lad. Did he make that promise to the lad, or to Ishmael? No, he made that promise to Abraham, and God breaks no promises. It doesn't say much about Ishmael here, except that he became an archer and dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, which means he was probably a wanderer in the desert. Paran was a desert or wilderness bounded on the north by Canaan, on the east by the valley of Arabah, and on the south by the desert of the Sinai, and on the west by the wilderness of Etham, which separated it from the Gulf of Suez and Egypt. Don't expect you to know where that is, but it is in the Middle East, actually not far from Israel. Finally, it says Hagar took him a wife out of the land of Egypt. That makes sense because she originally came from there, didn't she? We don't hear from Ishmael again until Abraham's funeral over 70 years later. What? Abraham lived another 70 years? Yes, we're going to find that out. We read this in Genesis 25, verse 9. And the sons, Isaac and Ishmael, buried him in the cave of Machpelah in the field of Ephron, the son of Zohar the Hittite, which is before Mamre. During all this time, we are assured in verse 20, God was with the lad. Now, although it says this, we should never interpret this as God bullying him into doing things. The lad had free will. And from what we know later about the Ishmaelites, whatever, it wasn't necessarily according to God's promptings. Similarly, all Christians are assured that God is with them. As such, God definitely guides and prompts us by his Holy Spirit, doesn't he? But he never bullies us. So, as Christians in the 21st century, let's pay attention to God's promptings and submit to his glorious will, unlike Ishmael, who did not submit to God's glorious will. But that's another story.